everybody, I was thinking D&D is pretty great. But would you look at this? Words! Nah, we need to go simple with it. And what better way to go simple with it than by making your game in a tiny all-encompassing package? These are rules light systems. They can range from being one page to a pamphlet, because what better way to not restart the satanic panic than giving out something that looks like a pamphlet? Rules light systems appeal to a wide variety of players for many reasons. First of all, they're easy to access. More often than not, you're going to find all of these online and downloadable in a PDF format. If they're not free, then they're usually pretty inexpensive by comparison to, well, all other TTRPGs out there, which makes it another lower barrier to entry. The second thing is, the rules are not extensive, so it is much easier to pick up and run a game, even if it is on the very same night. One of the biggest deterrents for new players to the hobby is honestly the size of the rulebook. While experienced players know you don't necessarily need to know every rule to play or even start, that's not common knowledge. So seeing a rulebook of hundreds of pages is a bit much considering all you ever played is the game of life. I could have sworn this was the board game. These types of systems are honestly perfect for one-shots or short-form campaigns, even last-minute games. As the rules are so light, they require very little prep on the DM, and usually rely more on group play. They really embrace the element of collaborative storytelling. Another reason is because they are, as mentioned, available online, and more often than not, free. So sending a link over to your friends for them to download is rather easy to do. Also, if they're not one-page RPGs, then they tend to be setting agnostic. Setting agnostic basically means that the game itself isn't necessarily locked to one specific setting. So games like Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder aren't by and large fantasy. Setting agnostic can be applied to any genre, be it Western, sci-fi, horror, you name it. Powered by the Apocalypse does this perfectly, and it's the system that Monster of the Week uses to run its horror game. And in all honesty, setting agnostic games is a video in and of itself. The biggest downside to these rules light games is that, well, they're hard to find. The exact number of these games is really hard to pin down. They're not as well promoted as the big names out there or even the ones sold in stores. Probably the most well-known rules light systems out there would be Honey Heist and Crash Pandas, along with Powered by the Apocalypse. Honey Heist and Crash Pandas were certainly assisted in their popularity by being featured on Critical Role, Honey Heist getting a trilogy run by Marisha Ray, and Pandas run by Sam Ringel. Another one that recently came to my attention is now on Kickstarter from Exist Games, and it's ENRPG. It's a rules light RPG and is largely setting agnostic. The game uses all the dice you normally get in a collection and has a simple to follow rules for character creation as well as general play. The rule book is clearly laid out and is easy to find what you're looking for. Not to mention, there is a very nice polish to everything. Now, first things first, yes, they did contact me a few weeks ago to take a look over the system and see if it's something that I'd be interested in talking about. In fact, taking a look at it is actually what inspired me to talk about rules light RPGs to begin with, and also one-page RPGs. This is not sponsored by them by any stretch of the imagination. We even talked about that. Rather, this is just them reaching out and me taking a look at their RPG and really being impressed by it and wanting to promote it because these games are very hard to come by, as we've discussed, and they deserve more attention. And honestly, if you are curious about the game, go ahead and check the Kickstarter down below, link will be provided. Don't get me wrong, 5e has done a lot of good for the hobby in bringing people into it. However, for some, even 5e is a bit much on the rules side. I have seen many players get overwhelmed by those rules, and as such, it can be a turnoff to entering into a wonderful hobby, which is why I love the fact that these types of systems that are more condensed and just a few pages can be really digest because it can bring people into this amazing hobby and potentially even introduce them to a world they didn't know existed as well as other games. Overall, rules light or one-page RPGs is a fascinating area of the hobby that is consistently growing. It can be an excellent gateway for people to enter into the hobby due to its low barrier to entry in terms of amount of rules and even price point. I mean, it's either that or play something like Monopoly.
Okay, I finally have the correct board game. Damn it!